Welcome back to volume 11 of our lecturettes for our COM 215 course. I want to share with you something we started to touch on in the last video on organizational communication, and that is a specific application of that has been proven to be not only effective, but essential to well-run organizations. Many executives have told me that one of their primary ways of evaluating their managers or directors or line supervisors, it may come as a surprise to you, they view the ability to delegate as one of the key features. One manager told me once is that he said that if a person, one of his people, knows how to delegate, all the other positive functions of being a supervisor fall into place. In an earlier video, I shared with you my love for the old textbooks on that science that was called industrial psychology. In a 1952 book, it said that the basic law of organizational efficiency is every task in an organization should be performed by the most junior level person who can do that task completely. When that is done, people feel valued and people don't feel stressed out. Listen to that again. Every task in an organization should be performed by the most junior level person who can do that task efficiently and completely. Now, that means a junior person may mean a newer person, less skilled, less experienced person. Quite often, what happens in a lot of organizations is that the senior person, the experienced person, is delegated all the tasks. And a lot of times, the more junior level people are resentful of that person, believing that she gets all the perks of it. Also, though, that senior level person who has all the tasks becomes a little resentful because he may be saying that, oh, I don't need to be doing this. Someone else should be doing this. The ability to appropriately delegate is an essential way of gaining teams and keeping communication going. I have developed a system of delegation that involves 3.5 steps. We will go through those in great detail later on in the syllabus. Many times when I bring up the notion of delegation, managers or line supervisors alike seem to have the strange look on their face that they are reluctant to delegate. And I've compiled a list over the years of some of the major reasons for their reluctances. Here they are. A lot of people say, oh, I can do it better by myself. Or I can do it faster by myself. I can do it easier by myself. I will do it right the first time. If and when any problems emerge, they say, I can think those problems out correctly. Many of them say, I am the only one who has the authority to do the job. Some people take a step back and say supervisors should do the work they expect their people to do. After all, there's a symbolic value of rolling up your sleeves and going down in the trenches with your folks. Some people who are a little more sensitive or empathic say, my people are already too busy. I don't want to burden them. I don't want to impose on them. They're so busy doing their jobs. A lot of people say, well, I'll only have to check up on them at the end, so I might as well do it by myself. There are a lot of reluctances why people don't delegate more. One of the ways I help them overcome these reluctances is telling them some of the truths about delegation. As some of those senior managers shared with me, effective delegation, they believe, is the single most important measure of the abilities of both a manager and a leader. Here's something that needs to be explored and exposed, and that is delegation is not a fancy disguise for giving orders nor making threats. It is a proven method to organize, and coordinate and maximize your people individually and collectively. One of the fears some managers have is that they fear that if they let go of some of that power, they won't get it back. Delegation does not lessen your authority or responsibility. Effective delegation will actually give you more because you will have more time to do more things. Indirectly, delegation can be used to strengthen morale, solidify a sense of team, and clarify its missions and goals so they're living the missions and goals. Fair and consistent uses of delegations make workers feel valued and trusted. If one person is singled out, that person feels valued and trusted. Delegation also provides a source of variety and a source of recognition. Hey, Joan, you did so good of a job on that other thing. I'm going to give you this perk of running these errands and take a long lunch. Delegation stretches people to extend themselves, leave their comfort zones, if you will, learn new skills, and feel proud about their new accomplishments. Indirectly, delegation can also serve as a test to see how well workers handle a specific task and what you can do appropriately to delegate to them next time. Have you ever been surprised, if you are a supervisor viewing this, that a junior level person to whom you delegated a task did it terrifically? So that gave you some feedback that they can handle something a little higher the next time. On the other side of the coin, have you ever been disappointed that an old proven pro who you believe can do the task did not do the task? Well, that gave you some feedback that there is an attitude problem or a skills problem, so that the next time you have to give that old pro a more menial task. And when they complain, and they will, you just remind them, you say, remember, 2 weeks ago, I delegated you that task that I thought you could do. You committed yourself to do, and you didn't do it. So I don't know if you were unable or unwilling to do that. Until you do that, you prove that, I'll give you a little way to start building yourself back up. When you're talking to your people about delegation, don't keep it a secret. Tell them your system about delegating, the appropriateness of the delegating. Tell them that basic law of organizational efficiency. I bring it down to the lowest level that I can of a person who can competently and completely do it. And then each time you do it, you can work your way up on future delegations or let yourself slide down. Ultimately, delegation is a tool for synergy in action. That is, that the whole achieved is greater than the sum of the individual parts. So if you are delegating to a team of 6, including you, that you're doing the work of 8, 9, 10 people with less stress on anybody, and there seems to be improved morale if you fairly delegate. And that's the key, fairly delegate. Some people say, well, why don't you fire that drunk person? It'll be good experience for you. No, you do the tough things. You do the conflict things. You learn how to resolve the conflicts. Delegate tasks to people who can stretch themselves. I've been spending time convincing you on the importance of delegation, and it really is a fairly easy thing to do. There are 3.5 steps in my system of delegation. These may make sense to you. The half step may not. Step number 1, make sure you specifically define what the task is to be done, specifically in great detail. If you do not know what it is, keep your mouth shut until you do know. In as great detail as you can, specifically the task, what to be done. Okay? Step 2 of that, make sure you specifically communicate what the outcome should look like or sound like or appear like. Do not assume just because you specifically define what the task can be, that you're also connoting what the outcome is. No, you have to spell out in detail what the outcome should be and use senses with it. It should appear bright and new. It should be humming like a hummingbird. Put people's senses into it so that they know what the outcome is. And if they haven't reached the outcome, they know where to go for the outcome. And then the third factor is to communicate the deadline of what it should be done, and communicate the deadline in very specific numbers. This task should take you an hour and 20 minutes. Some supervisors and managers always seem to put in a fudge factor and when it's due. If it's really due by Thursday noon, they sometimes say Wednesday end of day. And it's almost as if they don't trust their people to do those things. I'm not a great believer in the fudge factor. I'd say a very specific deadline, or if it's part of a project your team is managing, put it in terms of a timeline that this has to be done before the other crew or the other department could start working on their parts of it. Make sure you communicate in great detail. So these three elements specifically define what the task should be done, specifically define what the outcome should look like or sound like or appear like, and then specifically detail the deadline of when it's due. Now, here's the half. I have found that if you do this next thing, it will eliminate 85 to 90% of the implementation problems. Here it is. After you specifically define the task, the outcome, and the deadline, say to this, hey, why don't you, and help me out here, why don't you repeat back to me what you understood the task to be? If they start repeating back to you what they understand the task to be, you may say, no, I meant 3 o'clock today, not 3 o'clock tomorrow. It might be something you made a mistake on. Also, when they're knowing that they have to repeat back what they understood the task to be, they're going to listen better, and they're going to start hearing the sound of their own voice saying those things. And usually there's an increased sense of commitment once you hear your own voice, clarity of how to do it, or maybe some steps around with it. If you have them feed back to you what they understand the task to be, that will eliminate 85 to 90% of the implementation problems. And be careful in how you bring that up so that you don't demean or diminish them. Do not say, well, I know you have a limited amount of attention span, and I know you didn't listen to me much on that. So why don't you repeat your big, smart, intelligent boss, what your little pea brain understood the task to be? No. You own it. Say, hey, I don't know if I'm being clear with that. It was clear in my mind. I don't know if I communicated it clearly. Why don't you communicate to me what you understood the task to be? Okay. If you do that half step at the end of the 3 steps and do it regularly, there will be a nice dialogue. Also, at the end of that dialogue, bolster them up. Give them confidence, saying, I know you've never done this before, and I think you can think your way through this. So let them know you believe in their abilities to do that. Make sure you also give them the latitude to use their own initiative and creativity, especially if those people are in a job you used to be in. You might have done it one way. Make sure you give them the latitude once they understand it and commit themselves to it, so that they can use their own initiative to do that. Let them run with it. Give them assistance only when they truly need it after a couple attempts. Good supervisors who delegate more are also good educators. And sometimes as an educator, you may serve as a frustrator to that. A lot of times they may say, well, I don't know what to do first. Tell them, all right, go figure it out. Go. Give it some shots. And if it doesn't work after a couple attempts, come back to me and we'll figure it out then. Finally, reward them, recognize them commensurately with the results they achieve. If they've agreed and committed to it, accept no excuses and use their performance to delegate more appropriately next time. One of the greatest stressors in organizations is having responsibility for something without the authority to do it. Having responsibility for something without the authority to do it. Think back. Have you ever been delegated the responsibility to do it and no authority to implement it? So if that person you're delegating it to is in charge of 2 or 3 people, say, Susan knows what to do, and what she's saying, she has my full support on this. Make sure you match the authority with the responsibility. Delegation is a proven tool, and it works. After you overcome your reluctances, know the primary and secondary benefits of delegating, your task is to see how much more you can effectively delegate. The communication aspects of that are essential about being precise, specific, enthusiastic, and supporting. Delegation works. Now, if you are a supervisor, see how much more you can appropriately delegate and experience the results. I shall talk with you next time.